All right, we are back with the UFC this Saturday. UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Rodrigues from the UFC Apex. 13 fights on this card, coming off of the pay-per-view last night, obviously with Dricus du Plessis retaining the middleweight championship. So we've got 13 fights for this card this Saturday night. And folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more weekly MMA predictions here on the channel. Now, I did see the comments last week. I am considering making a separate channel for mixed martial arts, just so I can do more videos than just predictions on that channel. So I am considering it. I'm just letting you guys know that now. If that does happen, the first prediction video, the first video that will be on that channel will be UFC 313 with Pereira and Ankalaev in the main event. So at least for the next three cards, this one, the Seattle card with Cejudo and Song Yadong, and then the Fight Night card between Manel Kape and Asu Almabayev. Those three fight cards, obviously including this one too, are going to be on this channel. I'll let you guys know next week. We might have another channel for you guys to subscribe to next week for, while we're talking about the Seattle card. So let you guys know about that, but I am thinking about it, and if you want to see that, let me know. I think, again, that's probably the direction we're going, because, again, it'll just allow me to make videos that aren't just predictions. I'll obviously keep doing the predictions, but then we can talk about more MMA weekly and talk about more stuff up until fight week. So I think we're going to do that, just letting you guys know about that. So anyways, also, folks, make sure to go check out our daily college basketball best bets along with our NBA predictions on the channel. Let's get into the first of our 13 fights this week with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We start with a great one. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the order of this card is going to be. Like, Tapology has it one way and the UFC's website has it another. I'm just going to go off of what the UFC's website has. And our first fight is an absolute banger between Julia Avila and Jacqueline Cavalcanti. I believe Avila is still ranked, believe it or not. In the year of our Lord 2025, Julia Avila, I believe, is still a ranked bantamweight. Her last fight is a loss to Miesha Tate. Yep, she lost to Miesha Tate. She got subbed in that fight in the third round, and you could say Miesha Tate was possibly up 20-16 going into that third round because Avila did nothing. She continuously just got taken down in that fight. And now she gets Jacqueline Cavalcanti, who is a huge favorite over her. Cavalcanti, a -395 favorite, compared it to, again, Avila, who's +310. Cavalcanti, I'll be honest, just has been, I don't know, she's just done enough to win in the UFC. She beats Zara Farron. Okay. She beats Josiane Nunes. She outstrikes her. And then Nora Canol, it was just a back and forth fight that you're not going to remember that she wins by split decision in Paris last year. She fought pretty actively last year in 2024, at least second half of the year, fighting in August and September, and now here she is obviously back in February. She's not the most entertaining, but she knows how to win close fights. I mean, back-to-back split decision victories over Nunes and over Cornol. And again, Cavalcanti is going to bring you a striking style that I wouldn't say is impossible to beat, but it's a pretty good stylistic technique. That's probably the wrong way to put it. She's not bad stylistically for 135 pounds, at least when we're talking about some bad 135 pounders. Now, I don't want to say Avila's bad, but she's 3-2 in the UFC and ranked in the division. Now, trust me, I'm going to have my piece to say about the UFC's heavyweight division later today, about how we have a ranked matchup in that division later on in the card between Don'Tale Mayes and Walter Walker. That's real. We'll get to that later, but this is, again, a ranked fight in the UFC's bantamweight division. I think this division and heavyweight is by far the weakest divisions in the UFC, and it's not even close. I mean, why is Julia Avila ranked? Who has she beat? Penny Kianzad is her best victory. That came 6 years ago. Gina Mazzani, she beats her in 22 seconds in 2020. She loses to Sijara Eubanks, who has a professional record of 7 wins and 7 losses. She beats Julia Stolyarenko, who was god-awful in the UFC. I believe she was 2-4? Is she still in the promotion? I think she is. Because she beat Molly McCann, who sucks. Last week I said my piece about Molly McCann. Here it is again. And then Avila loses to Miesha Tate, who was 40. What? Guys, Miesha Tate fought in Strikeforce and was the champion in Strikeforce. That's who Julia Avila is losing to. I think she loses to Cavalcanti. I don't really care where the fight ends up. Avila showed that, all right, if she fights better fighters, she can't just bully him on the ground. She's not fighting Julia Stoliarenko. She's fighting an old Miesha Tate, but Miesha Tate's still able to dominate her. And I get it. Oh, Tate, former champion. That's fine. When has Julia Avila ever been impressive on the feet? What, she beat Gina Mazzani? Yeah, she lost to Sajara Eubanks striking. You meet Jacqueline Cavalcanti. It's going to be a unanimous decision. I'll just be honest with you guys. You can miss this first fight. If you're late to the card, when does this card start? 3 o'clock on the West Coast, 6 on the East. No, 1? Yeah, you can be late. You can start watching the card at 1:30. You don't need to see this. Jacqueline Cavalcanti wins the fight by unanimous decision. As I say that, I will probably be watching because what else do I have to do? So, yep. Anyways, let's go on to our next one. Oh, it's next. Oh, great. We have back-to-back ranked fights to start the card, and boy, am I excited. Walter Walker takes on the ranked number 12th in the world, I believe, Danteo Lord Kong Mays. Oh, why? Why are these guys ranked? Walter Walker's 12, or Walter Walker's 13, I think. Mays is 12. I could be wrong. But I know one of these two guys is ranked. I'm going to look it up right now. I could have sworn the UFC's fight page match, or the matchup page, had them both ranked 12. Is that legit? Or did they mess that up? Okay, so Walter Walker is not ranked, but Dontel Mays is ranked 14th. All right, you're telling me this guy is, including the champion, obviously, you're telling me this guy is the 15th best heavyweight in the world? Guys, let's go over Dontel Mays' record. He has a losing record in the UFC. We're going to count the Hamdi Abdelwahab loss, all right? He's 4-6 in the UFC. Let's start with his UFC debut. He loses to Cyril Gane, all right. Loses to Rodrigo Nascimento, who's not bad, but somehow out of the rankings now. Which, I'm not saying Nascimento's good, but like Nascimento's beat Dontel Mays twice. Wait, how does this make sense? Unless he got cut, which I don't think he did. Did Nascimento get cut? If he did, why the hell did you cut Nascimento and not Dontel Mays? Why is Rosenstrike out the UFC? Regardless, I'm just going to assume Nascimento's out the rankings. Guys, Nascimento's 4-3 in the UFC. He's beat Dontel Mays twice, and he lost to Derek Lewis and Alexander Romanov. Did Romanov get cut too? I feel like they're cutting everybody. Romanov definitely did cut, because he did get cut. He's not in the rankings anymore. What is going on? I'm fine with cutting boring fighters. I don't even know if Romanov's boring, but why the hell is Dontel Mays ranked now? You have to have some validity in the sport. This is ridiculous. So Dontel Mays, going back to him, he's 4-6 in the UFC. He loses to Gane Nascimento, beats Roque Martinez, not in the UFC. Josh Parisian, not in the UFC. Hamdia Delawab, he loses to Augusto Sakai, who I believe got cut, right? I think he did. Yeah, he lost to Phil DeFries in KSW last year. He beats Andrei Arlovsky, GFL zone. He loses to Rodrigo Nascimento again. He beats Caio Machado, who I believe just got cut after his loss to Bredison Ribeiro. And then he loses to Shamil Gaziev. He doesn't have a win over a current UFC fighter, and he's ranked. What? And don't get me started, Walter Walker, the older brother of Johnny Walker. He's 1-1 in the UFC with a win over Junior Taffa by heel hook in the first round. And then I lost to Lucas Bresky, who's 1-5 in the UFC with his only win being Walter Walker. This guy's going to be ranked. Walker's going to be ranked because he's going to beat Dontel Mays, but he lost to Lucas Bresky not even a year ago. I'm at a loss for words. Walter Walker's gonna win because Dontel Mays does not have a ground game. He doesn't. Shamil Gaziev took him down. Sakai even took him down. Hamdi Abdelwahab knocked him down and took him down. Cyril Gane in his UFC debut had a lot of success grappling Dontel Mays. Was that his first or second fight? Nascimento submitted him, and even when they fought a second time, Nascimento outstruck Mays. Walter Walker, I would be a little bit concerned as the fight goes on, if I'm being honest with you. He's got the potential to gas out, but ultimately, I mean, he could have won the Bresky fight, if we're being honest. But I don't care. If you're having close fights with Lucas Bresky, oh my God. I'll take Walter Walker by decision. I don't expect anything special. I think this just kind of goes with this fight being extremely low level in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Oh, Walter Walker. His nickname is the Clean Monster. You gotta be hiding something with that. Your nickname is the Clean Monster. I'll take Walter Walker to win the fight by unanimous decision. I think we see wrestling. I think it's kind of boring, but does Dontel Mays have a finish win in the UFC? Oh, he knocked out Arlovsky. Oh, and Josh Parisian, the fight where he got him in north-south position, just humped his face. Walter Walker by decision. You can miss the first hour of this card now. Let's see, what's next? UFC Apex. Oh, okay, this is fun. Elijah Smith takes on Vince Morales. Elijah Smith's going to be a good fighter. I'll give you that. I think Elijah Smith will be out of the Apex in at least 2 fights. This guy is very solid. His father was in the UFC. Is that a first? It might be a first. It might be a first. His father was a former UFC fighter. Elijah Swift Smith gets his UFC debut, and this is the perfect guy to break him in against Vince Morales. Morales 3-6 in the UFC, just came back to the promotion, lost to Taylor Laplus by unanimous decision. Now you bring him back for another fight against Elijah Smith. Obviously, Morales' first run of the promotion didn't go that well, capped it off by losing back-to-back fights to Jonathan Martinez and Miles Johns. Not the worst fighters, but his wins are like, Luis Smoka, Draco Rodrigues, Aman Zahabi. Zahabi keeps on looking better, obviously, but that was before Zahabi, that's when Zahabi was still like Ariel Helwani and not a fighter, I like Elijah Smith. I do. I think he's going to be pretty solid. His Contender Series victory, the one spot where I am a little bit concerned with Elijah Smith is going to be with his striking defense. He does get hit some, but the thing is, he fought one of those CKB guys, Aaron Tao, who, like, if you look up a picture of Aaron Tao, I'm not going to say nothing, but, like, he's got like a tattoo on his face. I get it's like tribal stuff, but it's just like, he was 5'4". It was a really weird fight. He's just one of those guys, one big, big stocky guy, for the weight class at 135 pounds. Just could take a punch. Had moments in that fight where he'd throw some back at Elijah Smith, and oddly enough, Tao got better as the fight went on. I think Elijah Smith easily won the first 2 rounds, looked really good in the first round, could have potentially been a 10-8 in the first. Definitely not, actually. Well, but Tao did nothing. I don't know. That third round, that Tao really came on. He's just one of those New Zealand guys who, like, he sticks his tongue out at you all the time. He does I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do the Kai Kara France, but he does it, and it's just like, all right, bro, like, cool. Elijah Smith handled him pretty well. The third round was a little bit difficult, but Elijah Smith was willing to throw in the pocket with him. I think Elijah Smith's going to be pretty good. This is a guy coming in from Fury. Was never the champion over there. Only had one fight over there, but won a fight in the first round against an 8-1 Josh Walker. I think Elijah Smith, again, he has all the skills to be a very good UFC fighter. He's got pretty good striking. He can wrestle too. I'm excited. I think, again, he's a fun prospect to watch, only being 22 years of age, and I think he definitely does take care of Vince Morales. You look at Morales' last fight, Taylor Laplus dominated that fight on the feet, and honestly, the way I see this one playing out between Elijah Smith and Vince Morales is that Elijah Smith should be able to have his way everywhere, regardless of if he wants it on the ground or if he wants it on the feet. I do think Elijah Smith is the better fighter. Morales, again, 34 years old. Smith is 12 years younger than Vince Morales. I think he's quicker. I think he's going to get off to a faster start, and I think, again, if he needs to wrestle Vince Morales, I think it should be a good test. Obviously, an entry-level guy in the UFC for Elijah Smith, but I do think Smith gets the fight done down there as well. So, honestly, wherever Elijah Smith wants this fight, he should be able to take it. I think, again, the cardio, I'll put that more of, the guy he was fighting was just kind of waiting for that spot in the third round, because that's really the only opportunity Aaron Tao had to win the fight, because he knew he couldn't just beat Elijah Smith, straight up. I don't know, that's kind of a convoluted way of saying things. But I don't think Elijah Smith has bad cardio. He trains up in elevation in Colorado. I think we're fine here. Give me Elijah Smith to beat Vince Morales. I think he puts on an impressive 15-minute beatdown. Give me Elijah Smith to win every single round and to win the fight by unanimous decision. All right, what does the UFC Apex bring us next? It is Gabriel Bonfim taking on Chaos Williams. Gabriel Bonfim is 16-1. Chaos Williams is 6-2 in the UFC, and they find themselves on the prelims of a UFC Apex card. Okay. I think there are much better fights than this, but here we are. It's an interesting fight. It is, because it's a stylistic, clash, obviously. Chaos Williams is going to try to strike with Gabriel Bonfim, and I think Bonfim's obviously best pathway to victory is going to be on the ground, regardless of what his last fight was against Ange Loosa, or it was, striking out of Bonfim. I think the best pathway to victory, obviously, in this fight is going to be through the grappling, and it just comes down to if Chaos Williams can stuff those takedowns. I don't know. I'm kind of split on this one. Bonfim is a -225 favorite. Williams is coming back at you at +185. I don't think we should entirely crap on Bonfim because of just one loss. I know it's against an old Nicholas Dalby, which isn't great because Bonfim was a minus 650 favorite at the time. He had a lot of hype around him. And he just gassed out in that fight, and Dalby just stayed in his face, and obviously Dalby finished him in the second round. He bounces back, wins a fight against Angelusa by decision, who's a guy who is, can start pretty fast and isn't horrible, honestly. He's not going to be, doesn't win many fights, but, he looks impressive, Angelusa, because he starts off really fast. The fight I always remember about Angelusa is whenever Reese McKee. That was really impressive, but McKee almost came back and beat him in the third round. But Bonfim, again, back-to-back victories to kick off his UFC run, both by first-round sub, Munir Lazez, Trevin Giles, and ultimately, I think if he beats Chaos Williams, it's going to look something like that. I think if he is able to get Williams down, I think he will find a way to find a submission. Chaos Williams hits hard, I'm not going to deny that, obviously coming off a first-round knockout victory over Carlston Harris. That was almost a year ago now, though. UFC Fight Night Barboza versus Murphy. He knocks out Harris in the first round, has a back-and-forth war in Newark, New Jersey in May of 2023 against Rolando Bedoya, wins the fight by a split decision, loses the fight prior to that to Randy Brown. No one's really able to take down Williams, which, I don't know, no one really tries, if we're being honest, though, because a lot of Williams' fights, if we're being honest, again, is just quick finishes. Bedoya goes 0 for 2. I don't think Baeza went 0 for 2. Michel Pereira took him down a couple times, but that really wasn't ultimately the reason why Pereira beat Chaos Williams. So again, it's all going to come down to the grappling of Gabriel Bonfim. Ever so slightly, I will take the favorite out of Brazil. I will take Bonfim. I think it's a combination of both. Sure, the wrestling he's able to do, along with the striking, and obviously we're talking about the jiu-jitsu as well. But I do think Bonfim is able to close distance. I think he is going to make it difficult on Chaos Williams, just because Bonfim isn't a bad striker. Again, Chaos Williams 100%. He has the capability of knocking anybody out. That's not in the top 15 at 170 pounds. Definitely, I get that. But I think Bonfim, again, he's not a bad striker. Dalby just kind of wore on him as the fight went on, and that's not the same style of fight that Chaos Williams usually fights. Sure, again, we saw that in the Bedoya fight, but normally, again, it is that one shot that Williams is looking for. So we'll see, again, how Chaos Williams approaches this fight, but if he does get hungry, chasing that knockout, I do think that presents a lot of opportunities for Gabriel Bonfim to counter and to also find ways into the clinch and find ways to get the fight on the mat. Again, I know Chaos Williams has an 80% takedown defense rate in the UFC, but at the same time, Gabriel Bonfim has an 80% takedown accuracy rate in the UFC. So something's got to give. I'm going to go with the favorite out of Brazil, Gabriel Bonfim. I think, again, Williams has one way to win the fight. It's on the feet. Bonfim has multiple ways. He can win it on the ground by submission. He can mix it up, or I don't think he can straight up outstrike Chaos Williams, but if Williams does approach this fight very, knockout, orientated, then Bonfim could be able, again, to just counterpunch him the entire fight. I think Bonfim gets this one ever so slightly. We're going to take Gabriel Bonfim to close the distance and get inside, taking Bonfim to win the fight by unanimous decision. We move to our next one, and we go to the flyweight division. Rafael Estevam taking on Jesus Aguilar. Both these guys 28 years of age. Estevam is a pretty sizable favorite, being the undefeated 12-0 fighter in this one. Jesus Aguilar, I'll just be honest, has never really impressed me all that much. He's 11-2 in the UFC. 11-2 as a whole, 3-1 in the UFC. And I get it, yes, he's 3-1, but you look at those victories, they're wins, but I don't know, just Aguilar doesn't pop out to me as a guy who's going to make a run in the division, obviously. Loses his first fight to Tatsuro Taira, beats Shannon Ross, but Shannon Ross should have never been in the UFC in the first place. That was a guy that just got signed because the UFC was going to Australia. He beats Mateus Mendoza by split decision. It was not a great fight that I thought Aguilar lost personally. And then he's got to fight in his last one over Stuart Nicol, Nickel, I don't remember how to say his name, I'll be honest with you. Aguilar misses weight, and I think the guy he was fighting was kind of just fraudulent. Let's just be honest. He hadn't really fought anybody. He was coming in from beatdown promotions. I think that guy was a fraud. I'm sure he'll be back. He'll have another fight. He's supposed to fight Rhea Tesura last week. I don't know how good Stuart Nicole, or however you say the name. I don't think he's the best. So, with all that being said, I'm not that impressed with Jesus Aguilar. Sure, he's winning the fights that he's supposed to win, obviously, right? I mean, he was an underdog in his last fight. But I really think he should be 2-2 in the UFC with 2 victories over guys who I don't think are all that great. Now, Rafael Estevam, you look at his one victory, he missed weight, but he did beat Charles Johnson, which is a good victory over a guy who was quickly rising the ranks at 125 pounds. They gave Charles Johnson Ramazan Terimov, my goodness, the dude from Ryzen out of Uzbekistan. That's a brutal fight for Charles Johnson. But if he wins, I kid you not, Charles Johnson's probably a win away from the belt. Regardless, that's a good victory for Rafael Estevam. Obviously, since, again, Charles Johnson has put together a 4-fight winning streak, but Estevam beats him by unanimous decision, misses weight, but looks good in the fight. It doesn't really do anything striking-wise, but gets Charles Johnson down and just controls him. Obviously, again, Johnson's doing the damage on the feet by clearly winning the third round. Hell, he outstruck Estevam 54-9 in that third, but again, it was a grappling-heavy approach out of Rafael Estevam, and that's how he won. And I expect the same exact thing here against Jesus Aguilar. I do. Again, if Mateus Mendoza, I always butcher that guy's name. I think that's how you say it. If he had that much success against Jesus Aguilar on the ground and arguably should have beat him in Mexico City last year, I think Estevam does the same exact thing to him. I'm not going to compare Estevam to Tetsuro Taira, but Taira got Aguilar down, and it took him less than a round to submit Aguilar. Aguilar's not a bad striker, and he got taken down in his own right in his last fight, but he just found a way to throw up a guillotine off the back, and obviously he won the fight that way. I don't think he's going to catch a good jiu-jitsu, player in Rafael Estevam in that. I think Estevam should be able to find a takedown. He should just be able to control the fight down there. Again, Aguilar is a striking heavy fighter. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Estevam gets a submission. I'm just going to go decision. I think he really just rides this one out in the ground. Again, guys, there's a reason all these fights are in the Apex. Have I predicted a finish yet? No. There's a reason for that. Crowds would be booing these fights by now. Even though, there might be potentially these fights are going to be really good. But there's a reason, again, these fights are in the Apex. Chaos Williams, Bonfim, banger. There could be a finish in that fight. I just think there's going to be a decision. Regardless, there's a reason these are not in front of a crowd. So we're going to be predicting a lot of decisions tonight. Give me a Rafael Estevam to beat Jesus Aguilar. Grappling heavy approach, and he should be able to win the fight by unanimous decision. Also look out for the damage that Estevam's able to do on the ground. Didn't do a lot of it in his fight against Charles Johnson, but he came to the UFC off LFA and even his Contender Series victory with some, finishes with ground and pound. So we'll see if he's able to throw any strikes while he's on the back, while he's got Aguilar on his back. We'll see. I think Estevam's the better fighter, and stylistically, he matches up way better with Aguilar than Aguilar does with him. Let's go on to our next fight as we go to a fight between Jared Gordon in the lightweight division against Cal Fernandes. It's an interesting one because it's a big step up, I think, for Fernandes. He's getting a guy who's very experienced in the UFC, obviously, in Jared Gordon, who has obviously fought Paddy Pimblett at one point in time. Cal Fernandes is coming off of a win in his last fight over Muhammad Yahya, who, I think it's a victory that we all expected. Yahya was the first fighter from Dubai, from the United Arab Emirates into the UFC. He's 0-2 now, back-to-back losses in UAE. We expect him to probably get another fight in Abu Dhabi at some point just because he's only lost 2 of them. They'll probably give him a third because why not? He's the hometown guy from UAE Warriors. But it was a very expected win out of Cal Fernandes. Let's just be honest. It was very expected. Now we get to see what Jared Gordon's going to do. Jared Gordon coming off a split decision loss to Nasrat Haqparast in 2024. But Gordon's really not that horrible. I think he probably still wins this fight. Cal Fernandes is 1-1 in the UFC. He's a good striker, I'll give you that. But I do think Gordon is just able to make this a gritty fight. And he's just able to close distance. And I don't kind of make it a little bit boring. I think, again, if he's able to push Fernandes against the fence, limit the explosiveness out of Fernandes, I do think Gordon gets it. I think, again, if Gordon doesn't overextend and if Gordon doesn't chase anything with it, which I don't expect him to do, he should be able to be more technically solid than Cal Fernandes. Again, Cal Fernandes will throw some flashy stuff, obviously. He will throw, those spinning back kicks and whatnot. That's what he caught his last opponent in LFA, Felipe Douglas with a head kick in the first round, right? I mean, he works the body well. I mean, it's a very heavy orientated approach out of Cal Fernandes. Yes. But if Jared Gordon's just able to fight a solid fight, if he's able to not overextend and just get in the face of Cal Fernandes, and again, just make it a rough fight for him. That's what DeCasey ultimately did. DeCasey wrestles, and DeCasey, again, clinches a lot in that fight. I think if Jared Gordon does that to Cal Fernandes, I think he should win. Again, I don't know if he's going to, follow the same exact blueprint that Mark DeCasey put out there, but I do think to a certain extent Cal Fernandes is a little overrated right now. I don't know what the odds are. Let me see. Obviously, I made the graphics last night, but minus 175 for Jared Gordon, plus 145 for Cal Fernandes. Yeah, that makes sense. Again, Jared Gordon, he should win. There's obviously a chance that Fernandes does catch him, but everything that we know about both these fighters does point to a Jared Gordon victory. It points to, again, a lot of just, a lot of closing the distance, finding shots inside, and potentially, if he needs to, wrestling in this fight as well, and just working the clinch. When you look at Cal Fernandes, again, the guy hasn't really beat anybody yet. I Guys, Muhammad Yahya is not UFC level. He's not a UFC caliber fighter. Regardless, I don't care what you want to say, he's not UFC level. The only thing that's really working for Fernandes in this fight is that he's 7 years younger than Jared Gordon. Flash Gordon is 36 years old. Cal Fernandes is 29. And again, Gordon's coming off of a loss in his last one, a very close fight to Nasrat Haqparast. But I mean, the Mark Madsen fight, I get that's entirely a different stylistic matchup, taking on an Olympic wrestler compared to Cal Fernandes. But he looked good in that fight. Got a knockout in the first round. Again, that is not even close to the style of fight he's going to fight tonight. But I do think Gordon's able to go out there and get this victory as long as he doesn't get caught early. And I think, again, I don't even care if Cal Fernandes wins the first round. I think Gordon could potentially be a live dog in this fight. If he does lose that first round, I expect him to win rounds 2 and 3. And I expect Jared Flash Gordon to go out here and pick up a unanimous decision victory, 2-1 with a win over Cal Fernandes. So we still haven't picked a finish on this card. Will we get our first one in this fight? Ha! Oh! I swear, that wasn't even a bet. I legitimately forgot what was next. Nope! Not getting a finish here. Even though Angela Hill did win by submission last year, it's not coming here, though. We're not getting a submission victory over Angela Hill twice in her career. Hell no. We go to the women's strawweight division, Angela Hill versus Ketlin Souza. You know, we keep having these fights with Angela Hill, and I keep saying again, like, oh, these are just fights that Angela Hill wins. They are unranked strawweights who are unproven. They get some good wins coming up, but then they run into the gatekeeper of all gatekeepers, and that's Angela Hill. Angela Hill's gonna beat Ketlin Souza. I feel very confident in that, honestly. What are the odds? Angela Hill's a favorite? She's a slight favorite. Yeah, Angela Hill's winning this fight. Ketlin Souza, whether you like Angela Hill or not, she is 40 years old. She has not yet shown, crazy signs of slowing down. You could arguably make the point that potentially she beat Tabitha Ricci. I'm not going to make that point, but I think there is a possibility that she might have beat Ricci. But this is what Angela Hill does. Again, Ricci was just too good. Ricci, again, we've seen her now fight Yan Xiaonan. She lost, obviously. But we've seen Tabitha Ricci now go up into the, the top 7-ish of the weight class. If you're not in the top 10, Angela Hill will likely beat you. We've seen this too many times at this point. Legitimately. Angela Hill's last 4 victories have all been that. Luana Pinheiro was not ready for the top 10 yet. Denise Gomez, not ready for the top 10. Emily Ducote, not close to being ready for the top 10. Lupi Godinez back in 2022 in San Diego at the time was not ready for the top 10. Lupi Godinez, by the way, beat Mackenzie Dern. It's ridiculous. Regardless, Angela Hill actually lost to Mackenzie Dern in the main event. I forgot that main event. Wow. If we get another Angela Hill main event, she got a main event after beating Emily Ducote. Oh my god. Ketlin Souza's 2-1 in the UFC. And again, this is exactly what I'm talking about. She beats Yasmin Yayargi. She's a big dog in that fight. Yayargi at one point was a hyped up prospect for the UFC. She's nothing close to that anymore. She's just another fighter on the roster that they'll bring to Mexico City every year. I'm serious. I think she got hurt this year, so she's not going to Mexico City. Yeah, she's not. But still, that's what she is. Yayargi is a fighter who the UFC has. She's Mexican, so she fights on Noche, and she fights in Mexico City every single year in the spring. That's what she does, right? She's not a star that they're going to push into the top 10 anymore. She's just another fighter who will be around for a while. So, beating Yasmin Yayargi, as the victory itself was impressive for Ketlin Souza. Yayargi's extremely beatable now, and it is what it is. She drops her, then finds a way to submission, chokes her unconscious. Okay, Souza before that beats Marnik Man. Marnik Man is not UFC caliber, and prior to that, she loses to Karine Silva by knee bar. Karine Silva is actually very good, but then she lost to Viviane Araújo as a -300 favorite, so you're not as good as Natalia Silva. I don't know what to say. Natalia Silva is an actual prospect in the rankings at 125 pounds. I'm very excited for. I think that is a future champion. Potentially. Give me Natalia Silva and Aaron Blanchfield, or give me Natalia Silva and Alexa Grasso. Just saying. Anyways, but regardless, Ketlin Souza's 2-1 in the UFC. And sure, she beat Yasmin Yayargi. But the thing is, Angela Hill's fought so many fighters at this point, and she just wins fights like this. She gets it into fighters' faces. She'll strike with you. She's hard to knock out. I don't think Angela Hill's ever been knocked out. No, she hasn't. Unless you can submit her, which I don't think Ketlin Souza is going to be able to effectively grapple her. I get Ricci did, but I think I'm okay with this one. Angela Hill is just... I can't believe I'm saying this with an Angela Hill fight. There's levels, guys. There's levels. She's better than Ketlin Souza. Souza hasn't been in there with a fighter like Angela Hill yet. Legitimately, guys, these are just the type of fights that Hill has won. I feel like I could be wrong, but I think I've gotten like Angela Hill's last 6 fights right. No, I picked Emily Ducote to beat her. Oh, other than that, though, we've gotten all the Angela Hill fights right. Why did I pick Emily Ducote? Actually, no, because Ducote was actually a prospect at the time. Regardless, we've done pretty well with Angela Hill fights. In Angela Hill's, all of her fights since 2020, I'm 7-3 on Angela Hill picks. So, you know, call me an Angela Hill expert at the... No, don't say... Oh, no, I don't want... No, that's the wrong way of putting that. I'm familiar with Angela Hill's fighting, just because she's always on these cards. So give me Angela Hill to beat Ketlin Souza by unanimous decision and just kill another prospect, because we don't need those. We need Angela Hill at 40 years old to continue fighting in the UFC Apex. God, they're going to put Angela Hill in the Hall of Fame, aren't they? She's going to get the... Oh, no. She's like female Cowboy. No. But Cowboy was actually good. Oh, God, if they put Angela Hill in the Hall of Fame. No, they can't. Because then they'd have to put, like, Jillian Robertson in the Hall of Fame as well. No. But they put Cowboy in the Hall of Fame. But no, at least Cowboy got title fights. Yeah, no, we're good. Okay. Arguably, by the way, Angela Hill maybe deserved a title fight if she could have beat Claudia Gadelha. If she got that decision, she might have got a title shot back then in 2020. Anyways, here we go. We have our next one between Jose Delgado and Connor Matthews. The odds weren't out when I made the graphics. I believe they're out now, so I will tell you the odds if I can find them. Yes, Jose Delgado a -230 favorite, Connor Matthews a +190 favorite. I think Delgado should be an even bigger favorite. I get it, Delgado's making his UFC debut in this fight. I'm not impressed with Connor Matthews. This is a guy that the UFC got off of Dana White looking for a fight. I was actually kind of surprised that they gave Connor Matthews the contract in the first place. Or they signed him to the Contender Series, and then he somehow won in the Contender Series. And then he lost to Dennis Buzukja in his first fight in the UFC with a left hook. Matthews, I believe, was he on Contender Series twice? Or, sorry, Dana White looking for a fight twice. I know he's on Contender twice. He loses to Francis Marshall the first time, comes back, wins one fight in Combat Zone, which has never been the best regional up in the Northeast. And then he beats a 10-0 Jair Ferris, who I didn't think he was going to beat. And then he gets in the UFC, and he gets knocked out in his first fight. Now Matthews gets Jose Delgado. Another guy coming off of Dana White's Contender Series, Delgado picked up his contract with a knockout victory over Ernie Juarez, winning the fight by knockout in the second round with a knee. Prior to that, he was fighting in LFA, United Fight League, and Tough Enough. Delgado's not horrible. He is a headhunter for the most part. He's going to look to knock you out very quickly. And it's a style that, honestly, I don't know how far it's going to take him in the UFC. He can wrestle, by the way. Delgado can wrestle, too. So that's another added bonus for picking him to beat Connor Matthews. If you couldn't tell, we're picking him to beat Connor Matthews. But, again, Delgado headhunts, and he's got power. He should beat Connor Matthews. The one spot where I'm a little bit concerned with where Matthews could pull off an upset is if he does wrestle. And if Delgado's not able to stuff that, because we haven't seen a really good wrestler yet try to wrestle Delgado. Now, I don't know if we can say Connor Matthews is a really good wrestler, but I mean, Delgado did pass the test when he fought in his Contender Series win over Stockton's own from the 209, Ernie Juarez. He's got to be a Nick Diaz guy, right? Has to be, I assume. Maybe not. I don't know how many MMA gyms there are in Stockton. Regardless, he fought a decent grappler, like jiu-jitsu guy. Like, Juarez, again, is a good grappler. I wouldn't say straight good wrestler, though. So that's the difference between, again, Delgado's fighting the Contender and now against Matthews. Like, Matthews is a solid wrestler. We saw that in his fight the win over Jair Ferris on the Contender Series, 7 takedowns in that one for Connor Matthews. That's where he's looking to win. But at the same time, when he fought in the Contender Series the first time around 2022, Francis Marshall took him down at will. Marshall had 6 takedowns in that fight for Matthews. And Matthews at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City wasn't really able to effectively wrestle Dennis Buzukja. He went 1 for 3 on his takedowns in that fight, and again, wasn't all that effective in doing so. So I think Delgado should be fine here, and guys, believe it or not, we are finally picking a finish on this card. It can be Jose Delgado to beat Connor Matthews in the first round. If Matthews is not able to get a takedown, he's going to get blitzed, and once he feels the power, I do think Delgado is able to take over this fight, because at that point, again, how many more times is Connor Matthews going to want to shoot him for a takedown and expend all that energy if he knows he's just going to get clipped and tagged on the way in? That's where Delgado's going to catch Connor Matthews in this fight. It's going to be Connor Matthews coming in, Delgado's going to clip him a couple times, and eventually Jose Delgado is going to find his way to a knockout in the first round. So yes, we are putting a little bit of stock into a guy who's making his UFC debut. I don't know, again, how sustainable this is down the stretch in Delgado's career in the UFC. Again, I don't know how great he's going to be down the line, but this is the fight that you do break him into. It's a fight against Connor Matthews, who's never been the most impressive ever, if I'm being honest with you guys. I think, again, Delgado picks up the victory, and he knocks out Conor Matthews in the first round, finally giving us a finish with what, our 7th fight of the card that was? Great. We move on to a grappling heavy fight, one could assume, in the middleweight division between Rodolfo Vieira and the American Andre Petroski. I don't think the odds should be anywhere close to where they're at. Don't think they should. Vieira is a -205 favorite. Petroski coming back as the underdog at +170. I personally think this should be more as a pick'em, or if you want to make Vieira a slight favorite, I wouldn't complain. I don't mind Andre Petroski in this fight. I think he can definitely win. Now, stylistically, sure, Vieira, again, it would make sense that he beats Petroski here, but hear me out, all right? Andre Petroski's a good wrestler. We know that. That's what he brings to the table. His striking leaves a lot to be desired, as can be seen in his win over Gerald Mearshart, right? He's not that great of a striker. Held the loss to Jacob Malkoun, where he got knocked out by, like, running into... the official line result in that fight is Jacob Malkoun victory over Andre Petroski, ground strikes after hard collisions. So I remember this fight. I was at a Cincinnati Reds baseball game, but I remember watching, yes, I was watching UFC while at a Cincinnati Reds baseball game. I remember watching Andre Petroski run into Jacob Malkoun's hip, trying to get a takedown, and he just went, oh, and then got hit with the hip and like his chin, I guess, and I don't know, he just curled up into a ball and the fight was over. It was weird. I'm not gonna lie, it was weird. He's bounced back since though. He's bounced back, right? Back-to-back victories over Josh Fremd and Dylan Budka. Those have been wrestling heavy fights out of Petroski, and that's how Petroski wins. Now, Dylan Budka is actually later on in this card. He might be the next fight if I'm not mistaken, which is weird because why is he higher on the... Actually, we know why he's higher on the card. The guy he's fighting, spoiler, Budka's supposed to lose this week, okay? But Petroski, again, like, he's going to be able to take down Rodolfo Vieira. It's just a matter of what does Vieira do once he's off his back. Because again, this guy, the nickname is the Black Belt Hunter. Like, he is a phenomenal jiu-jitsu player. But, and again, he's won back-to-back fights by submission, the win over Cody Brundage and the win over Arman Petrosyan by arm triangle, both of them in the first and second rounds respectively. But those guys aren't great. Like, Petrosky's better, Petrosyan's better than Brundage, but I think Petroski's better than both those guys. I know he lost back-to-back fights to Michel Pereira and Jacob Malkoun, but we haven't seen Petroski out-wrestled yet, and we have never seen him submitted, at least in the UFC. We saw him subbed by Brian Battle with the guillotine or a ninja choke on the Ultimate Fighter, but Petroski's made a lot of adjustments since then. I don't think it's going to be easy for Petroski, don't get me wrong, but as long as he's able to stay out the way of submissions, he should be fine. Now, I don't think Petroski's gas take is anything to celebrate. It's not great. But Rodolfo Vieira, we've seen gas time in and time out as well. So as long as Petroski's able to stay out the way of submissions, I actually do like him to win this fight. I think this is a very playable underdog here, guys. Vieira, he's 35. Again, that doesn't like kill your jiu-jitsu ability, but Vieira's cardio has never been the best. We saw that in the Anthony Fluffy Hernandez fight where he got subbed. We saw that in the Chris Curtis fight. He's only won 2 fights since 2022. He fights once a year. Right? I'm not denying how good of a grappler Rodolfo Vieira is, but he's not going to be able to take down Petrosyan. So this fight's all dependent on what Petrosyan does. I don't think Rodolfo Vieira has taken out Andre Petroski. Sorry, I said Petrosyan. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Andre Petroski. I don't think so. So it's either Petroski's leading the dance wrestling-wise, or Petroski's striking with him, which I know he's not the best striker, but I'd still take Andre Petroski in a striking fight against Rodolfo Vieira. So we'll see. I don't think Vieira is able to find a takedown. Maybe he'll pull guard. And again, the question is, once we get into this fight, what does Petroski do if he gets the takedown and when he's on top? What happens then? Again, that is to be decided. But I like the conditioning more to Andre Petroski. We did see him tire a little bit in that fight against Gerald Mearshart, but that was kind of a grueling, grappling and striking, combination of a fight. I'm okay with Andre Petroski in this one. This is a very playable underdog, plus 175, give or take, on the dog here out of Springfield Township, Pennsylvania. Give me Andre Petroski to win the fight, as long as he's able to stay out the way of submission, which is much easier said than done against the Black Belt Hunter. I do think Andre Petroski picks up the victory. Give me the American Andre Petroski to beat Rodolfo Vieira by unanimous decision. Okay, we move to the lightweight division as we've got Ismael Bonfim, obviously the brother of Gabriel Bonfim. He's going to be the second Bonfim brother fighting tonight, taking on Nazim Sadykhov. Interesting fight. Bonfim 2-1 in the UFC with victories over Terrence McKinney, where he flying kneed him in the second round and put him out unconscious. Losing to Benoit Saint-Denis after that, and that was the fight that gave Benoit all this momentum, and everyone thought he was going to beat Dustin Poirier. I can't believe, still to this day, how is Poirier a plus 200 give or take dog against Benoit Saint-Denis? Now, Dustin's retirement fight in New Orleans this year, I don't know who it's going to be. Probably Max Holloway, potentially Gagey maybe. Oh my goodness. What if he loses? What if he loses in New Orleans? I assume that's going to be the second pay-per-view in June, because UFC always does 2 pay-per-views in June. I think it's going to be the late pay-per-view in June, right? Like the one that was, I can't remember what it was last year. I think, it was the London one last year. That's probably going to be the spot for Poirier in New Orleans this year, because it's the 13th pay-per-view that the UFC just adds every single year. Regardless, Bonfim versus Nazim Sadykhov. I think Bonfim wins. I know that was a very anticlimactic way to say the winner of this fight. I think Bonfim beats him. I'm not impressed with Nazim Sadykhov. I'm not at all. The Vaislev-Borshev fight, I'm still so unimpressed with Sadykhov. He could have won that fight, and he completely sold the bag, and Borshev just beat the shit out of him. Whatever, in the third round. I try not to curse on the channel, but whatever. As much as I can. But yeah, Borshev just beat the crap out of him in the third. Sadykhov dominates the second round. Third round, Borshev beats him. First round, Borshev beats him. There were so many missed opportunities for Nazim Sadykhov. I was pissed off watching that fight. Sadykhov beats Terrence McKinney, but like, again, if you have any bit of skill, and I like McKinney, but if you have skill and are an up-and-coming fighter, odds on is you probably beat Terrence McKinney. Now, guys who don't have skill and who suck and are cans, that's who Terrence McKinney beats, and that's why he will remain in the UFC till the end of time. But Sadykhov beats McKinney. He beats Evan Elder before that. He wins a fairly competitive back-and-forth fight. He's hittable, though. He's more than hittable as Sadykhov. And that's honestly where I think Ismail Bonfim wins this fight. I see this fight contested on the feet, and this fight, honestly, might win fight of the night. It should win fight of the night. Again, me saying I'm not impressed with Azerbaijan's Nazim Sadykhov doesn't mean I think he's a bad fighter. Doesn't mean he's a fun fighter. I don't know. Again, I like watching Nazim Sadykhov fight. I just don't know how skilled he is to beat guys like Bonfim. Bonfim is the skillfully better fighter. He's got more skills to beat Sadykhov on the feet. I do like him. I do like his striking game more than Sadykhov's. I don't think we see this one hit the mat. I think both these guys obviously are talented down there. Sadykhov, I don't know who's better. Because Bonfim gets subbed a lot. He has submissions of his own right. He's actually been subbed 4 times. Now, a lot of this came a long time ago. Hell, one of his submission losses is to Hanato Moicano back in 2014 in Jungle Fight, which makes you think, wait, Bonfim's 29 years old. So he was 18 when he fought Moicano? That's actually crazy. Wow. He started fighting in 2011, which would be 14 years ago, right? 14, wait. He started fighting when he's 15? Nah, something's not added up. He had his first professional MMA fight when he was 15 years old. That's actually crazy, I'm not gonna lie. That's insane. But Bonfim looked good in his last fight, right? Bouncing back after the loss to Benoit Saint-Denis. He beats Vince Pichel, wins that one by unanimous decision at UFC 301. Again, it's just an impressive striking performance out of Bonfim. He gets to the victory. Picks up the victory in that one. I don't know if we see Sadykhov try to take Bonfim down or the other way around. If anything, it'll probably be Sadykhov, because I do think, personally, I think Bonfim will be winning in a lot of these striking exchanges, but ultimately, I don't think Sadykhov's able to realize that much success with the grappling and the wrestling against Bonfim, and I do think Bonfim's going to be able to touch him up quite a bit, kind of similarly to how Vaislev-Borshev did. Now, again, Sadykhov has power in his own right. He can crack you, and he's more than willing to scrap. I'm not going to deny that. Again, I said it. Sadykhov is a fun fighter to watch. But ultimately, I do think Bonfim gets this one done. I think Bonfim wins in a lot of these exchanges. I do think he's the technically better fighter, like technically striking-wise. I think he's the better striker. I just think Bonfim wins in a lot of these exchanges, and I think he's able to keep the fight standing, and ultimately, that's where Bonfim wins this one. So give me the Bonfim brothers to go 2-0 today. They're both in some really tough fights, though. I don't even know. I don't know. I think I'm more confident in Ismail winning than Gabriel, just because I think Ismail's slightly better, and he's got a better fight. I don't know. They're both in for some really tough fights tonight, but I will take Ismail Bonfim in the lightweight division to beat Nazim Sadykhov, and he will get it done by unanimous decision. All right, we mentioned this fight earlier, and here it is. This is the final straw for Edmen Shahbazyan. He has to win. I don't know if they're going to cut him. They probably won't, but he has to win this fight. The UFC continues to give Edmen Shahbazyan some of the biggest layups I have ever seen. This is exactly what this fight is here against Dylan Budka. It is a layup. He is supposed to beat Dylan Budka. Dylan Budka is what? 7-4 professionally, but 0-2 in the UFC. Not the most impressive fighter. And Shahbazyan better win, because if he doesn't, there's a problem. Shahbazyan coming off of a loss in his last fight to GM3 Gerald Mearshart. He gets subbed. Guys, remember when Edmund Shahbazyan was potentially a fight away from the championship? He fought Derek Brunson, and there was talk, if he beat Derek Brunson, potentially he'd get a shot at Adesanya. He didn't, but there was talk, because that's kind of how middleweight was at the time. Adesanya was fighting Paulo Costa, Brunson was making his little championship push, Whitaker had beat Cannonier, so it was like, all right, we don't really want to give Whitaker another shot right now, and obviously Izzy just fixed that by going back up, and the division sorted itself out, so, Rob obviously got his next shot at the belt after when they came out of the pandemic, but there was talk, okay, if Shahbazyan can beat Brunson, maybe they just give him a title shot right away. He's Ronda Rousey's guy. If not, he has to win one more, then he gets a title shot. Well, he lost to Derek Brunson, and his career has not been close to the same ever since. He loses to Brunson, then loses to Jack Hermanson, then loses to Nasruddin Imavov, who we didn't know at the time was going to be that good. Beats Datsha Lujiambula, good fight, he wins, knocks him out in the second round. Loses to Anthony Hernandez, beats AJ Dobson, loses to Gerald Mearshart. Now, if he didn't lose to Gerald Mearshart, I would say, you know what? All of those losses, in hindsight, aren't that bad now. Hernandez is in the top 10, Imavov's a fight away from the belt, Hermanson's always been a gritty, tough veteran, and Derek Brunson at the time was still very skillful at the time against Shahbazyan, right? But here's the thing, he has to beat Dylan Budka here. Dylan Budka is not good. He's 0-2 in the UFC, losses to Cesar Almeida and Andre Petroski. Almeida, we knew what that fight was going into it. It was either Dylan Budka wrestles Cesar Almeida and doesn't let Almeida outstrike him and knock him out, or Almeida's just going to chin this guy. The first round kind of went like we thought it was going to go. I mean, we thought Almeida was going to win, so we got it right, obviously. But the first round was, all right, oh, crap, here comes Budka, wrestles him the entire round. Almeida does nothing. It was kind of similar, if we're being honest. Now, I'm not comparing Cesar Almeida to Alex Pereira, but it was like, hey, when Pereira's first fight against Andreas Michailidis in the UFC, Michailidis dominates the first round, grapples him, and Pereira didn't do anything. Obviously, in the second round, Pereira knocks him out. Second round of Cesar Almeida's debut, he knocks out Dylan Budka. Budka doesn't have an answer on the feet. So we look at Dylan Budka's second fight in the UFC. It's a loss to Andre Petroski, who obviously we just talked about. He just gets out wrestled. And again, I remember talking about the fight at the time in the fall. It was just, Petroski's a better version of Dylan Budka. They're both wrestling heavy fighters, and everything that Petroski does, or everything that Budka does, Petroski just does 2 times better, and he's got more experience than Dylan Budka. So I do think Dylan Budka's nickname is the Mindless Hulk. I do think he has a chance to beat Shahbazyan, but I think it's definitely difficult. I think it's gonna be tough for him to win this one. Just because, again, and okay, the way to beat Shahbazyan, the blueprint's out there. Brunson did it, Hermanson did it, Imavov kind of did it, Hernandez did it, and Gerald Mearshart too. You just take him down. He can't grapple, and even on the feet too. Guys, remember the AJ Dobson fight? He won. He knocked out Dobson. But it didn't come easy. That was kind of brutal. Dobson didn't almost knock him out, but Dobson was landing early in that fight. Now, obviously, Shahbazyan finds the way to the knockout in the first round, but if Shahbazyan's not able to knock out Budka and he is getting grappled, there is potential for Budka to win. So again, the UFC, by giving Edmund Shahbazyan this fight, they are giving him the lowest level version of the guys he's already lost to. I'm serious, because I think the way the UFC's putting this fight is, all right, if you can't beat Dylan Budka, you don't deserve to be in the promotion anymore. Because you simply put, can't wrestle. I think he should be able to stuff the takedowns out of Budka. Budka is a low-level version. He's a Walmart version of every guy he's fought so far, being Shahbazyan. I think Shahbazyan wins. I think he outstrikes Dylan Budka. Dylan Budka got knocked out fairly easily against Cesar Almeida. He's not a good striker. He leaves himself open to get caught a lot. And I expect Edmund Shahbazyan to go out here and win this fight. And I think he gets it done fairly easily. Give me Edmund Shahbazyan to win in the first round with a first round knockout over Dylan Budka. We move on to our co-main event here in a fight that is kind of interesting, to the point where Calvin Kattar is a plus 310 underdog against Youssef Zalal. For reference, I believe Calvin Kattar was around a plus 220 underdog against the former champion and potential greatest bantamweight of all time, maybe Merab now, but Aljamain Sterling at UFC 300. Kattar is now a plus 310 dog compared to Zalal's minus 395 favorite in our co-main event tonight. I think Zalal wins, I'll just be honest. I do think Zalal beats Calvin Kattar, but no way, no how should Kattar be a plus 310 dog in this fight. maybe Vegas knows something we don't, if I'm being honest. I don't know. Kattar is 36, about to turn 37. And Zalal, again, Zalal's been good. I'll give the Moroccan Devil a lot of, credit. He gets cut from the UFC initially, comes back, wins like 5 straight fights, then comes back to the UFC, beats Billy Quarantillo, beats Jarno Aarons, and now picked up a submission victory over Jack Shore, all in 2024. And now he's on the cusp of being ranked. And when you look at what, Zalal's first run in the UFC was, the 3 guys he beats, no longer in the UFC. Austin Lingo, Jordan Griffin, Slippery Peter Barrett. Then he loses 3 straight fights to Ilya Topuria, okay, whatever, Sungwoo Choi, Sean Woodson, not a bad loss, and then has a draw against Damon Blackshear. In a fight that Zalal could have won, but I was okay with the draw scorecard in that fight. But then he comes back and wins 3 straight fights all by submission. Now, I do think he subs Calvin Kattar. Does he sub Calvin Kattar, though? No, I'm taking Zalal by decision. Here's my thing. If Aljamain Sterling wasn't able to submit Calvin Kattar, Yusuf Zalal is not going to be able to submit Calvin Kattar. Now, again, there is the argument, Kattar's just old now. He didn't do anything in the Aljo fight. He looked horrible. I'm willing to say that's more Aljamain Sterling being that great, obviously. He was the former champion, going up a weight class and being that big for 145 pounds, rather than, Kattar's that washed up. I think this is a close fight. I think Kattar's going to win a round in this fight. I don't think the odds to replica should be where they're at, but I do think Zalal ultimately does win with his wrestling. Because again, I think Aljo, if anything, I know Aljamain Sterling is one of the best guys at doing this in the entire UFC, obviously. There's not many guys who straight up wrestle better than Aljamain Sterling, and that was actually apparent in the Movsar Evloev fight that Aljo just had. But sure, if you can wrestle like Aljamain Sterling, which Zalal can't do, but he's a good grappler and a good wrestler, then that's how you beat Calvin Kattar. You do exactly what Aljo did, right? You wrestle him, you don't let him strike, you keep closing distance, and you keep shooting for legs. So that's what Yusuf Zalal is going to do in this fight, and I think he will be successful. Will he get that submission, though? No. Kattar's jiu-jitsu isn't horrible. I think he's able to fight off his back again. If Aljo wasn't able, I know Aljo didn't, officially attempt a submission in that fight, but Aljo was looking for positioning, and he really couldn't get anything going against Kattar, at least in terms of fighting that sub against Kattar. I don't think Zalal is going to be able to get that submission either. Again, unless Calvin Kattar all of a sudden just looks completely washed up. And if maybe that Aljo fight was a precursor to what we're seeing now. I get it. Again, Kattar has lost, 4 of his last 5 fights now. He's never been the same since the Holloway loss, right? Again, Holloway 50-42s him, 50-43s him. He beats Giga, though, in a main event after, but then loses to Josh Emmett, arguably a fight he should have won in Austin, Texas. Loses to Arnold Allen, where he, the leg kicks take a toll, and then he comes back 2 years later and doesn't do anything, had the worst performance other than Cody Brundage. Probably worse than Cody Brundage at UFC 300, right? So what will Kattar be now? Is he old? Past the surgeries now? I get it. I understand why Zalal is at these odds. I don't think it should be this crazy. I think it should be more Zalal minus 200 range. That would make a lot more sense to me rather than this 300. I mean, that's a little insane for Yusuf Zalal. Sorry, minus 400 for the Moroccan Devil. I'm taking Yusuf Zalal, though. Again, this is just a stylistically made fight. Stylistically, it's a fight that's made very well for Yusuf Zalal. Just wrestle Calvin Kattar. Don't get into any, bad predicaments on the feet, obviously, because Kattar can still strike, but again, how efficient is Calvin Kattar of a striker at this point of his career? We just don't know, and we just don't know. We're gonna learn a lot about Calvin Kattar in this fight. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot to learn about Calvin Kattar in this big fight with Zalal. Basically, I mean, I don't think Kattar is gonna retire after this fight, but if Kattar can't win this one, he's done in the top 15 for the rest of his career. So we'll see. And again, I don't think Kattar's got that many fights left with the amount of damage he's taken. Really, honestly, with majority of that just being with the Max Holloway fight, I don't know how many fights again Kattar has left. But I will take the Moroccan Devil Yusuf Zalal. I don't think he's able to sub Kattar. I think Kattar is good enough defensively off of his back to remain out of submissions. But I do think Yusuf Zalal dominates this fight with position and with wrestling. Give me the Moroccan Devil Yusuf Zalal to beat Calvin Kattar, and he will get it done by unanimous decision. We go on to our main event of the evening. It is in the middleweight division between Jared Cannonier, as a plus 170 underdog, against RoboCop Gregory Rodrigues. It's Cannonier's my goodness, it's not his 4th straight main event. It is his 5th straight main event. Jared Cannonier has now been in total 8 UFC main events with this fight against, 9 main events, because he had Adesanya in a main event. Wait. No, he's been in a main event. Oh, no, he was the co-main of the Whitaker Adesanya card. This guy's been in, I think this is his 9th main event. which is crazy against Gregory Rodrigues. It might be his last, if we're being honest, for Jared Cannonier, unless he's able to win this fight. Anyways, Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Rodrigues. I'm a little concerned because Jared Cannonier is really old now. He just is. Cannonier is 40, about to turn 41 years old. He has potential to win this fight, don't get me wrong. But he's 41, taking on a much younger version of himself. That's kind of what this is, right? I don't know if Rodrigues will ever get to the height and to the peak of what Jared Cannonier was in his career. Because yes, at Jared Cannonier's peak, he was good. Jared Cannonier was a very solid fighter. Obviously, a former title challenger, fought Adesanya, arguably should have got a second title shot after he beat Marvin Vettori, right? Like, again, Cannonier, in his last win, looked great against Vettori. He stacked up back-to-back victories over both Strickland and Vettori, where I was coming on the channel making the case he should have got the fight against Duplessis rather than Adesanya. But he got hurt before he was supposed to fight Dolidze in a winnable fight that he probably would have got. And now he's lost back-to-back against Imavov and Kyle Borjayo, who are great. Don't get me wrong. Both those guys are going to fight each other. Hell, Drika said it last night in the post-fight press conference. Imavov and Borjayo are probably going to fight, and the winner of that fight is going to fight the winner of Duplessis and Hamzat. So those are good names, don't get me wrong. But Cannonier was just getting outstruck in the Borjayo fight. And we thought, all right, Borjayo's probably going to grapple him, and Borjayo's probably going to find a submission. No. Borjayo dominated the fight striking-wise. That's what happened. He dominated Jared Cannonier striking. I don't know how Cannonier didn't get knocked out at the end of the 5th round, so shout out to, again, the toughness out of Jared Cannonier and the resiliency of Jared Cannonier to not get finished in that final round. But Borjayo had him dead to rights in that 5th. And Borjayo was dominating the fight. It wasn't fight of the night, but Borjayo wins it by unanimous decision. That fight was in August. We are 5 months after that now. I still think it's a little too soon. Because, guys, in the span of 2 months, Jared Cannonier gets TKO'd against Imavov. Sure, early stoppage, yes. But there's a reason Jared Cannonier was in that spot in the first place. It's because he got rocked. And then 2 months later, he gets knocked out by Kyle Borjayo, or stays in the fight. But, again, is, as close to being knocked out as you possibly can. And now, just 5 months later, we're fighting a power-punching Gregory Rodrigues? Oh. Now, don't get me wrong. Rodrigues can get hit. We've seen Rodrigues get knocked out before. Bruno Ferreira did it in a fight that, Rodrigues was definitely supposed to win, right? But he's bounced back since. He beats Dennis Tulin in one of the nastiest knockouts I've ever seen, just because it was brutal. He takes down Tulin, and he just takes his elbow and keeps bouncing Tulin's head off the canvas with elbows. It wasn't like, it was like, oh, it was a flash KO, it was crazy. It was just like, it was a brutal knockout. It happened really quickly in Boston in UFC 292. And then Rodrigues beats Brad Tavares, and then he beats Christian Leroy Duncan. I didn't think he was going to win that fight, but he did. He wrestled Leroy Duncan and looked good. I don't think there's much wrestling here, guys. I think it's a striking battle. Whoever cracks that first shot or finds that first shot ultimately is going to win the fight. I think there's going to be somewhat of a feeling out process in the first round. Maybe we'll see Rodrigues shoot for a takedown. We'll see. But I guess the theme of this card, guys, with the co-main and the main event is a passing of the torch. And this is what this is. Gregory Rodrigues is the new Jared Cannonier. But he's not going to get to a title fight ever. But he's just that guy in the top 7, the top 8 that's going to be a fight night, main event guy for the rest of his career that can give you fun fights, that can give you knockouts, who potentially can go the distance. I mean, we've seen Gregory Rodrigues get late finishes, and we've seen him go full 3 rounds. We've never seen him go 5 rounds. Now, I don't think this fight's going to go the full 25 minutes. But ultimately, I do think RoboCop is the new Jared Cannonier. I honestly think he is. I think, again, he fights a little bit more recklessly than Cannonier does. I mean, obviously, he's not a former heavyweight like Jared is. But if this is Jared Cannonier's fight, great career, man. Probably no Hall of Fame in the future for Jared Cannonier, unfortunately. The Vettori fight was good. They're not going to put an Apex fight in the Hall of Fame, though. They're not going to do that. Maybe Jared does one more. No. I hope Cannonier gets one more in front of a crowd. Let's give him a washed-up middleweight. Let's give him a bad veteran middleweight matchup. What would that be? That would be Kevin Holland. No. Let's give him... Who's a middleweight that's past his prime that we can give him for our send-off fight in front of fans on a UFC Fight Night card in a co-main event? We can give Jared Cannonier, I would say Weidman, but Weidman's in the GFL now. I hope he doesn't go to the GFL. Does Cannonier? Julian Marquez, the winner of Julian Marquez and Cody Brundage. We can give Jared Cannonier for his send-off fight. Just get him out with a victory. Book it summer, winter of this year, and Jared Cannonier can ride off into the sunset at 41 years of age. This fight, though, I just think Jared's going to get caught. I think at this point in time in his career, man, he's 41. That damage takes a toll, and I do think Rodrigues is going to be able to find a way to knock him out. Jared hasn't looked bad his last couple fights. He's just been beat to the punch. And I get it, again, he's fighting elite guys. Imavov and Borjaio are both, going to fight each other, and likely the winner of that fight is going to get a shot at the World Championship. And again, that's not Jared's fault, but at some point, again, I think the damage is going to take a toll. And this just isn't the type of fight I would like to see Cannonier fight in the top 15. And again, he's giving Rodrigues a huge opportunity, obviously. Rodrigues is outside the top 15, getting a shot at this. I would have liked to see him fight, maybe a top 15 fighter that doesn't have the most knockout power. Maybe a guy like Chris Curtis, a Jack Hermanson rematch maybe. Hell, maybe even Paulo Costa, because again, who knows if Costa's going to find it within himself to find a knockout, right? Even Brendan Allen, I would have liked to see more. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Just stylistically, I don't love the fight. And at the same time, yes, Jared has the potential to 100% crack Rodrigues and find a knockout. That could happen. Rodrigues does leave himself exposed, but when's the last time we saw Jared Cannonier knock anybody out? It was Derek Brunson, which is a very prolonged beating in a fight where actually Brunson was winning the first round. The last time we saw Cannonier flatline knock someone out was Hermanson back in Denmark in 2019 in Copenhagen. I mean, that's been 6 years now. 5.5, more accurate. But still, it's been a while since Jared's just, completely put someone out with one punch. I think, again, it would take a lot for him to win. I don't know where the power's at this point of his career. He should be able to tag Rodrigues, but how will he follow that up and how will he remain consistent in this fight? I just don't think so. I'm going Gregory Rodrigues to find a way to knock out Jared Cannonier in the second round and pick up the victory in the main event. So folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Rodrigues full card predictions. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Let me know again if you want to see that separate MMA channel, leaning currently towards yes on that, but let me know in the comment section down below. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.